That boy would have to take a nap for the rest of the day.
He had such blue eyes.
Such a blue... You know how those blue-eye boys drive me crazy.
This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. Follow Daniel at DStarSick on Twitter. Follow Ryan at Darth Damio on the Bluebird app. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to episode 68 of the Horror of Babylon, where we are reviewing River of Teeth by Sarah Gailey. I'm Ryan, and with me as always is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
And Hef is here.
Cougar bait.
He's choking on the Cougar Bait beer. Today we're drinking Cougar Bait by Country Boy Brewing. It's not bad.
It's subtle.
It's all right.
No 45-year-old women have shown up yet.
Country Boy Brewing, I almost bought for you guys. It was like a vanilla coffee bean.
Oh, that sounds
beer.
great. Yeah.
I didn't buy it because I thought I would hate it, and I can't.
Okay, so I'll buy that for me and Hef.
I want to say thank you to our patrons who miraculously are still here.
I love every single one of them.
So thank you to Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron. And a special thanks to Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming, who you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, or at the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. While you're there, say hello to Ronald III, the true Grampus of Christmas. He only stole my Christmas one time. However, he didn't give it back to me until March the 13th. Why are we reading this book?
Because you like hippos.
I do like hippos. I'm going to tell you, for those of you who don't know, I'm a big history guy. A lot of the podcasts, YouTube channels I listen to or follow are history related. And years ago, I listened to this podcast called Stuff You Missed in History Class, where they take like little known events or people in history and shine a light on them. And they did a 2-part episode on the Hippo Bill, which we'll talk about more in background. But specifically, it's about in the 19th century when the United States was facing a meat crisis and considered importing hippopotamus from Africa to start hippo ranches to farm for meat and solve off the meat crisis. That's a thing that really happened. And I just think that chapter in American history is absolutely fascinating, and I have for years. And there's not a lot of content and information out there, so whenever I find something, I always devour it. One day I'm going through an Audible sale, and there's a 99-cent sale, and I see this book called River of Teeth, and it has like hippos, people riding hippos on the cover, and I click on it, and it's like an alternative history of the Hippo Bill. I'm like, buy. I bought 3 copies of it, sent one to Hef, one to Daniel, one to me. We're doing this book. Oh my god, we have to do this book.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
This book is written by Sarah Gailey, who is a modern American author. They are from California. They are a novelist, essayist, and a comic author.
The executive producer is saying that our ratings need to be better.
That's the producer.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because he's involved in the show.
Oh.
The executive producer doesn't do crap.
He doesn't meow when I hold him.
They are a novelist, essayist, and comic author. Some of their novels include Magic for Liars, When We Were Married, The Echo Wife, and Just Like Home. They have written comics including The Vampire Slayer, Eat the Rich, and Know Your Station. And in 2018, they won the Hugo Award for the Best Fan Writer. River of Teeth was published on May 23rd, 2017. It was a finalist in the Nebula Awards for Best Novella that year. It was also a finalist in the Hugo Awards for Best Novella that year. And it was a finalist for the Locus Award for Best Novella in 2018. Now, if you really enjoyed this book, it has been more content written by Sarah Gailey in this universe. There is a sequel novella called Taste of Morrow that was published in 2018, and there is a short story called Worth Her Weight in Gold, which continues the stories of one of the characters. We're going to talk a little bit about the actual history. I'm not going to get into a lot of specifics. In the latter 19th century, 1800s, we were facing a meat crisis where the country was growing, population of the United States was growing at such an exponential rate, and we live in a culture where, you know, our diet is meat-based. The agricultural section of the country could not provide enough beef, pork, chicken.
It all depends on what she cooks, like beef, pork, chicken.
To sustain our population growth. Lots of educated people in the United States were looking at other options, and there were some people who said, hey, why don't we import hippos and start hippo ranching?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me
He seems genuinely impressed.
let me explain their logic. One, it would be using previously unused land,
Yeah, this is a useless land.
specifically swamps, bayous in the deep south,
Fuck them gators.
Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi. Two, a Japanese delegation brought water hyacinth to the United States as a gift during a diplomatic event, and it actually was let loose into the ecosystem and became a invasive species that just literally took over so many waterways in Southern America. And it's still a problem to this day. And the state of Louisiana spends about $2 million a year trying to contain the water hyacinth plant. And one of the thoughts they had is that the hippos could feed off of this water hyacinth. And then, of course, the third point is we could farm them for meat. That would solve the water hyacinth issue and solve meat crisis issue. Pretty smart plan, right?
I'm on board. Let's do it.
Pretty creative thinking.
How do I sign this into law? Congress?
Critical
Sentence.
thinking, even.
A bill was written,
Okay.
and it went to Congress at the end of one session. It never made it to the floor for debate. And long story short, it ended up just kind of dying a quiet death without ever actually being debated on the floor of Congress. One of the main proponents got involved with the Mexican Revolution and wasn't able to be in Congress when the bill came up. Shortly after, we entered World War I, and then these things just went away. What are some of the obvious issues here? Daniel, would you consider hippos to be domesticatable animals?
Based off of what I know about them, no. But I am also not a...
You're not a zoologist?
Yeah, that's the word.
Hippos are responsible for more deaths in Africa on average per year than any other animal save one.
Yeah, they're super territorial.
There's-
What's the one?
Man.
Not man. Well, actually, so if you count man, it's probably third. But there's
How's it feel to be the bronze medal hippos?
there's one animal that causes more death than hippos. It's super obvious. You're going to feel stupid. when you hear
Elephants.
it. No,
Hyenas.
mosquitoes.
Oh.
I do feel stupid.
Now,
Especially because it's the second time I've had this conversation with them.
so on average, hippos cause about 500 deaths per year in Africa. They're super territorial. They're super bulky. They're way faster than they appear.
Look, yeah.
And they're very, very aggressive.
My favorite video of a hippo is a deer getting torn apart by African dogs, and the hippo chases the dogs away, and then the deer gets stuck in the hippo's mud. So the hippo picks up the deer and beats it to death and then throws it back to the dogs.
Hippo chase videos, like people in boats being chased by hippos, are something I like to watch. And I will tell you, I've had a little bit of a fear of hippos ever since I was a child. and I saw a little film by the name of Congo.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I saw that movie as a kid. In the 3 minutes that hippos were in the movie, I was like, hippos are a million times scarier than gorillas.
Even super smart white gorillas.
Yeah. Damn those super smart white gorillas.
They probably used the hippos.
They rode them.
They rode them into battle.
There's your free scene for Planet of the Apes, whatever movie you're on now.
Oh, they haven't done a new Planet of the Apes in like 5 or 6 years.
Okay, so there's your new scene. Apes on hippos. Freebie.
If we can have James Franco in a
Yeah,
Planet of the Apes movie, we can have a hippo.
Stamp it, James Franco.
Stamp it. James Franco.
Is James Franco fat? Is he a hippo?
No, that's
the
Brendan,
actor.
That's Brendan Fraser.
Oh.
By the way,
he won a Golden Globe.
I don't give a shit.
Or like
Oscar.
Oscar, yeah.
I don't give a shit about the
so
Academy
happy,
Awards,
yeah.
but thank
Doesn't matter.
Good on you, Brendan Fraser.
Yes.
All right.
We miss you.
We're going to go ahead and move on to the actual book, but I'll probably interject a little bit more of the history as we go in. And if you check out the show notes, I'm going to have a link to a couple podcasts and YouTube videos that discuss this more in depth.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Structure-wise, this is a very
Straightforward.
It's chronological. It's from multiple perspectives, but it's first person from each of those perspectives. Or no, was it an omniscient mirror? I don't even remember it, so I don't care.
It was omniscient from each perspective.
Okay, yeah,
kind of
that's
like
right.
like it was not first person, but they were still speaking like omnisciently as that. I read this as like the structure was kind of like the author watched The Magnificent Seven and said, "Okay, I can do my own version of it."
Yeah, it kind of does have like a Magnificent Seven vibe to it, where you're like assembling these teams of like Western outcasts.
Yeah.
Like they stop. I think there's like 5 main characters roughly.
There are 5
There are
in
5.
the group, plus their hippos, plus the poor
Right.
little boy.
But to me,
My
like
favorite character.
We'll get to that.
It's like to me, it felt much more like the first part of the book is basically all of the characters like getting to the point where they're going to assemble, and then once they assemble, that's the rest of it. But to me, to give you an idea, what I said to myself was this. So this book is basically The Magnificent Seven meets Ocean's 11 with hippos.
I'm putting a team together.
That's basically how I see this book.
I need a fat French woman.
It sort of kind of has that heist movie feel to it, where you're putting the team together for this plan.
It's not a heist, it's an operation.
Yeah, I didn't think that was nearly as funny as Sarah Gailey thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you only made that joke like 7 times.
Can you guess what my Koontz is?
That joke.
Yeah.
If I were to describe this book to anybody, that's how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a fair descriptor.
So let's talk about themes. And the main theme, or what is told to you to be the main theme, I would say is less important to the actual book than it maybe leads you to believe, is hippos. Aside from the feral hippos at the end, I think that you could almost just replace the hippos in this book with horses and it would hardly matter.
Aside from them being needed to be a danger in the water at the end, which could have been alligators.
I think they like had an idea to write a book about hippos, and then they got to the end of the book and realizes they still need to be hippos.
I don't know if this is a criticism for me, but it does feel like they heard the story about the hippos and were like, okay, I'll put cowboys on hippos. But that's as far as the thought went until they got to the river.
Okay, so
like, how did you domesticate this hippo?
I'll bring this up now. We've talked a lot in the evolution of this podcast about how expectations matter. Oftentimes, if you have an expectation and the actual project is different, you can feel disappointed. A lot of times you can readjust your expectations, experience the book or movie a second time, and enjoy it more. And I'll tell you, my expectation for this book was it was going to be about the actual historical figures, who I'll talk about later. The intent was for them to go to Africa, get a population of hippos, bring them to the United States, and start a ranch.
So you were expecting like actual historical fiction?
I was expecting that where they actually, the bill passes, they start the ranch, and then the ranch goes horribly wrong because you can't domesticate hippos.
I think I found the premise for your book.
Yeah. What we got is something where the bill passed, they did domesticate hippos.
It went sort of wrong.
It went sort of wrong, but sort of right. And we're years down the road in like an alternate United
Timeline,
States. Yeah, where hippos have just become a part of the United States. And it's not even really about hippos. It's just hippos are in the story.
Yeah.
And I know, like, just because Sarah Gailey didn't write the book I wanted doesn't mean this book is bad. It just...
That's the book you wanted.
That's the book I wanted.
I didn't know what to expect, because I listened to all of that stuff after I read the book. So I went in with zero expectations.
I was surprised by what, like, the twist of events that happened. Because I went in pretty open-minded, too. I didn't know what the hippo thing was about. I didn't really know, like, the whole thing about it. And I kind of let myself do that, specifically so that, to me, it felt just a very strange amalgam. The whole story itself felt like it was torn in, like, 4 different directions of what it wanted to be, but didn't really know how to compile all of it.
Okay.
So like I said, like there's definitely elements of like the Magnificent Seven, right? You have your gang of heroes or anti-heroes in this case that eventually form a union at some point in the book for the ultimate like showdown, heist, whatever it is that you have. They're anti-heroes in the sense that like, you know, not all of them are on the right side of the law. In fact, I believe all of them are none of them are on the right side of the law. So it's like it's built all of this or this character dynamic that's supposed to be like the big final point of the book. But I feel like the author was more interested in bringing all the characters together rather than making it understood why the characters were getting together in the first place emotionally.
And to add to your point, where they get together goes to just a houndstooth and the fat lady very fast. Mm-hmm. So you get very little of the 5 of them together as a group.
It was very short.
Yeah. Well, because by the time they all form together...
What's the fat lady's name?
I don't remember.
Nope, I don't either.
It's in my notes, but I don't
know.
Well,
like to me, because once they all finally form together, whatever like that, there's only like 2... Like, you could finish the book in 2 hours. Like, I think it's like 2 hours is left of the book after that. It's very short. Yeah. So, like, there's all this character build-up without actually any character build-up. At least for me, it is. Like, it seemed like a story that really wanted to emphasize character growth without actually giving you any characters to grow with. This was an amalgamation of, like, every Western you could possibly put together. Like, there's a lot of things. Like, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of horror in this book.
There's a couple, like... deaths by hippo.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Which while terrifying is not exactly what I would call like the cornerstone of the book.
It's like pulpy Western that's like pulpy violent Western that's kind of like horror adjacent.
Yes.
Yeah. It's weird. Okay. Obviously loss is a big theme.
I lost my hippo ranch. Now I need to do this operation.
I'm a little critical of Winslow Remington Houndstooth, but I will say if I poured my life into a hippo ranch and I lost it, I would be upset and jaded too.
That is facts. I'll give you that. I could not think that he was basically Clint Eastwood. He was he was slightly more open-minded Clint Eastwood. If that makes any sense.
Houndstooth did just have I'm the Western protagonist background tragedy story.
I imagined him as Jeff Bridges, and it was so much fun.
Which is literally
from like True Grit. Like I imagine he's more of a True Grit character. That's kind of like what I got.
I just pictured the dude from Red Dead Redemption.
Which one?
The first one.
The main character.
Marston. John Marston.
Marston.
You eat babies. When he like gets the Bigfoot creature.
He's that guy, but he fucks men.
I love John Marston. I miss him still.
Wait, did Marston fuck men?
No.
Okay.
Well, maybe, but not canonically with it.
Yeah, no. It would,
that's the only Rockstar game I've played to completion.
To completion.
It's good. Like story-wise, it's actually probably one of, if not their better titles.
Yeah.
I like the zombie DLC.
Yeah.
That actually was fun, yeah.
Undead Nightmare.
Yeah. It's the only game I would win, like DLC I would consider buying by itself.
We are not going to finish our episode. We're actually just going to stream Undead Nightmare. Okay, our last theme, scarred protagonists who are kind of anti-heroes. They're people with like questionable morals, but you can kind of, it's that like group of rogues who maybe do questionable things, but you can kind of admire, like in the instance of Houndstooth and the Fat Lady. God, I should know her name.
Elizabeth?
But, like, yeah,
No.
No. I've been trying to Google it for like 20 minutes.
She's French, I think.
Antoinette.
God.
We're gonna.
Archie.
Archie.
Why
did I keep thinking that's one of the hippos?
Because why would a French woman be named Archie?
Archie. Okay.
Yeah.
Archie, this character that we have totally known the whole time.
That's why I couldn't remember.
Okay.
It was not typical.
There is
What was her hippo's name?
Oh, it was like Neville.
No, Neville's the boy.
Neville's the boy.
It starts with an R. Ruby is
Ruby's his Houndstooth.
Okay, the last thing we were talking about is there's a certain amount of devotion between Houndstooth and Archie that is kind of admirable.
Was it Rosa?
Rosa, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
All right.
I found all the hippos' names.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's jump to characters. Let's talk about characters. And I want to use this time to talk a little bit about Russell Burnham and Fritz Duquesne. When this Hippo Bill was being created, they needed to get a couple men who were familiar with Africa, who knew a little bit about hippos, who could do the legwork and be, expert witnesses to Congress. So the two people they recruited were Russell Burnham, who this man was the real-life inspiration for Indiana Jones. He was also the real-life inspiration for the Boy Scouts. The guy who started the Boy Scouts was Russell Burnham's commander in the United States Army, and he said, I started the Boy Scouts in the hope that I could raise an entire generation of men to be Russell Burnham.
God damn. That's an expectation.
And then Fritz Duquesne was a con artist, survivalist soldier who fought for the Dutch colonists in the Boer Wars in South Africa, where he earned the nickname the Black Panther because he was so good at surviving in the African bush. So he went from fighting in the Boer War. The Boer War was British colonialists fighting against Dutch colonists in South Africa. Basically, white people fighting white people over land that should honestly have been owned by black people. If you've seen any of the Zulu movies, or you know anything about the Zulu Wars, it's adjacent to that. We're not going to get into specifics.
It's like when me and my daughter fight over a shirt that my wife washed.
Exactly. Okay, so this guy, Fritz Duquesne, he got famous as the Black Panther during the Boer War. Then he was involved in this whole Hippo Act thing. He ended his life by running the largest spy network in the United States against the United States for Nazi Germany. Both of these people, Russell Burnham and Fritz Duquesne, are infamous. One, the inspiration for Indiana Jones and the Boy Scouts, was literally called the Black Panther and ran the largest spy ring in America against America for the fucking Nazis. You could not ask for two more interesting people to write a book about. All right, let's talk about the characters in this book. Woo! Winslow Remington Houndstooth.
I like that he fucked a person right after he just met him.
That boy would have to take a nap for the rest of the day.
He had such blue eyes.
You know how those blue eye boys drive me crazy.
Yeah. Reminded me of me.
Come on, Ruby Doo. Every time he called his hippo Ruby Doo, I just started saying Scooby, Scooby Doo. Ruby Doo. Thoughts on Winslow Remington Houndstooth?
I wish he would have fucked more people.
He was a Clint Eastwood where sexual boundaries were not something he considered. That was basically what I took from Winslow Houndstooth.
He's just like me for real.
In terms of like a character, I actually thought he was pretty good, but I also had the unfortunate idea in my head of comparing him with basically every other cowboy in cinema and or major like fictitious nature.
That's a high bar.
it's a problem. He was kind of just unremarkable in that aspect. I understood his place. It was just the problem was that his place was just so generic.
I appreciated the backstory of wanting to have a Hippo Ranch. Your Hippo Ranch falls apart. But other than that, I think generic is the word on the head. He's just that scarred cowboy with a backstory that's dark, and I have problems, and now I'm just an outlaw. I'm out looking to make a buck, and the only thing that's different about me is I ride a hippo instead of a horse. Except the hippo doesn't really relate to the story at all, so you could honestly just replace my hippo with a horse, and it wouldn't matter. Archie, the French con woman.
I like that she used a mace.
A hippo hammer. What do they call it? Something hammer.
I don't remember, but it's like on a chain and she swings it around and throws it at people.
Yeah.
I think that's neat.
Of all the ones that were in here, she was like the most cartoonishly over the top, I think.
She was pretty...
Like, she was cartoony in the sense.
The person's
like,
performance, because I listened to this on audio.
Yeah, he did a good job.
He made her super French.
He made her very French, but he also, like... The author kind of makes it a point to, like, just emphasize how large she is.
And her Frenchness.
And just how... So she's just basically a croissant walking around. Like, that's what I took from it.
I am covered in butter, and I am so flaky.
I want some frog legs.
And I entrap men, and I give them long kisses, and I say, you are a virgin, and I am and I have a bull and I stick my all down your and I say, give me money.
You have not given me more orgasm than 2 minutes. I feed you to my Hippos.
I wish
that's kind of Russian, but yeah, I like it. I'm a little turned on.
I'm a little worked out on it. It was not good. I'm not good.
I've only had
French is like my worst accent.
Oh yeah.
2 beers and I'm gone.
I'm on my 5th.
4. We're done.
But I'm not going anywhere.
I'm gonna drive away from this conversation.
I'm sorry. Is Daniel the one that's taking the high ground, like
Yes.
above the rest of us? I'm sorry. That's really bad for us.
Let's talk about the most during the entire book, Calhoun, who betrayed Houndstooth, and his hippo was Betsy, and he got thrown over the ship and eaten by hippos. Is there anything else to say?
He got his ear cut off. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
We all saw it coming because of all the character deaths. His is the only one that was just kind of like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, and turns out he impregnated Arlene, the knife-fighting Latino pregnant lady.
Oh, is that who the dad was?
Yeah, it says that towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe the author rolled a 6-sided die and said, whatever this number comes up with, if it's greater than 4, that's the number that I'll use as far as how many characters I have to have. Calhoun is the most expendable character of all of our people that have compiled.
Calhoun. He was supposed to be like this best shot ever, right?
I think he was only there to make Travis interesting.
Travers.
See?
I mean, yeah. You know how, like, when you have a heist movie, and every person's supposed to have a role?
Yes.
And then somebody's killed, and then their role can't be filled, and that's where the drama comes from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
His role was he was a good shot.
Yes.
So what was his role in the caper? It's not a caper, it's an operation.
He was the contact with the people who had the explosives.
Okay.
So Archie had to pretend to be a man.
I'm glad he remembered this.
Archie had to pretend to be a man. She put on a fake mustache.
I remember that scene.
Yeah.
And it was because Calhoun was dead, that's right. I guess that makes sense that now that you tell me he was the contact, because apparently I've excised that from my memory. The whole time I'm sitting there going, I understand what a lot of these people are for. Houndstooth, he's the one who got the job, so he has to get the team together. He has the money.
He's George Clooney.
Yeah. Hero, they know how to blow shit up. I don't remember what the French lady's job was.
I think she was just like the muscle.
She was the
and she's like a con.
She could like
pickpocket. She could pickpocket. Okay.
Yeah. She was like quick
I guess that's general skills. That's fine. What was the pregnant lady's job?
She was a knife fighter.
Yeah.
She could throw knives.
So she was Jason Statham from The Expendables.
Ask her about C-sections, Daniel.
She could throw a knife at Hero without killing him, so that later in the book, oh, I see. Arlene did throw that knife at Hero, but she did it in a way that didn't pierce his organs, so she didn't really want him to die, which means she can be redeemed in book number 2. Is it nobody's...
Ryan, Sarah Gailey rolled a 5. We had to have 5.
It's okay, I'll just make Stan a goldfish. Hero, whose hippo was named Abigail, breaker of chains, mother of dragons.
Hero took me a while to figure out what exactly their vibe was, their role was in the book, and then
They could blow shit up.
I mean,
Their role, they're the person in the heist movie who's retired and they have to pull back out of retirement.
it just feels like this whole thing feels like a trope, though. Like that's my whole gripe with this. Is like every character is kind of a trope of a Magnificent Seven / heist movie.
Yes,
it feels to me like Sarah Gailey said,
Hippos.
I have this really cool idea about hippos. I have to stick with hippos because I'm technically writing a novel. And then she got to the end of the novel and said, oh, wait a minute. I still wrote a novella that I have to finish, and it has to include hippos. Like we were talking about with Remy. Her, what is it? Her bunnies? Help me? Plot bunnies.
Plot bunnies, yeah.
Okay, her plot bunnies. This feels exactly that, except she just let the plot bunnies just multiply. That feels like what happened here.
Catholic rabbits.
Would you fuck Hero?
I mean, probably.
Okay.
Sounds just androgynous enough for me.
They're the nicest of everybody.
They are. It's not close.
Yeah, they seem super cool.
If I had to have a beer with anybody from this book who wasn't a hippo, it'd be Hero.
I agree.
Okay, what about Arlene? What are we going to say about the knife fighting?
I can't do it. I'm going to hurt the baby. No, you're not going to hurt the baby. I can't do it. I'm going to hurt the baby. Seth Rogen, you don't fire all the time, but when you do, good job. Good job.
I'm the opposite. I want to hurt the baby.
Seth Rogen was just like, I can't believe I get to mount Katherine Heigl. This is never going to happen
This is the
again.
closest thing to, like, godly that I'm going to be.
I have to enjoy this. This will never happen again.
People are going to hate me in 5
I bet he
years.
got an action. I bet that was the last scene they filmed because he sat there and thought to himself, I'm going to get an actual boner while I'm doing this.
They tape you down.
I don't care. She still felt it, I'm sure.
Tape me down. It's Paradise City. I don't care because Katherine Heigl is super damn pretty. Oh, won't you please tape me down?
Any other notes on Arlene?
She had the potential to be one of the cooler characters and was not.
Honestly, yeah, I love knife throwing characters. I always think that's such a cool skill. One of my first crushes that I ever had was a girl who could throw knives.
She could have had so many just, like, clever quips. Like, I don't know, like, even if you were just a token character of just, like, you're, like, the smart-ass pregnant lady, like, I still would have preferred that to what we got.
Travers.
Generic Western guy.
In my head, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, which made him close to acceptable.
Same. I pictured the dude from Django Unchained.
Django Unchained,
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It's basically Leonardo, it's what is it, Candy? That was his name in the film,
Yeah.
right? Candy?
I think so.
I believe that's right. That's who he was, and I refuse to believe that Sarah Gailey didn't write this book and think exactly of that role.
Sarah Harding! Vince Vaughn, shut up! Stop yelling! There's fucking dinosaurs!
What,
It's called the Fuzzy Dingo.
Kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Are we on scary shit?
Is this book scary? No. Moving on to Kiss Me, Fat Boy.
I don't know. I think the idea of falling in a river filled with hippos is a little scary, but that's like a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, but was it scary how it was presented in this book?
No.
Alright, moving on. Kiss Me, Fat Boy.
Kiss me, fat boy.
I wish someone would have fucked the pregnant chick.
They didn't. Moving on.
They didn't.
Well, I don't know, like a Houndstooth, he got laid a lot.
I always remember the scene with Hero and Houndstooth, and I just was listening to it and thought, I was like, how far are they going to go with this?
Hero.
And I was disappointed when we didn't get more.
There's a lot of talk of sex.
It's a heavy implication without actual delivery.
What had better sex, this or the Watchers movie?
At least this had consenting adults.
Thank you.
I didn't have to watch two 16-year-old kids pod each other.
Yeah.
No shade to Frank Zappa's niece. Like, if I were in her position and Corey Haim was pawing at me, I'd totally be pawing back.
Oh my God! Are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
King and Koontz.
This is going to sound kind of tongue-in-cheeky, but it is one of the few things I think. It takes itself as a serious novel, and it sells itself as a serious novel.
It tries to be as serious as it can with the premise.
It tries to be as serious as it can be with the premise, and I think it sticks.
My king is always short.
My king is when the little boy got eaten by the hippo.
That's my Koontz.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, it's not so much that he got eaten. It's my Koontz is that such a small amount of time that they were upset. Like, oh no, that sucks. All right, moving on.
Yeah, but these are all bad people.
My Koontz was, my Koontz was the characters felt almost like characters, but they never,
almost, but not quite.
But they never quite got there.
Never quite.
My Koontz was, it's not a caper, it's an operation. Because that running gag I was done with it by the second time it happened.
We're moving on to rankings. Daniel, you're going first.
I still think I have to put it right below A Dowry of Blood.
Okay.
It was close, though. If we did ties, it'd probably be a tie.
Mr. Heff.
We spent a portion of this podcast looking up Lili Sobieski. And if you know who Lili Sobieski is, God bless you.
Me suck you.
I want you to go where Phantoms is.
Uh-huh.
And I want you to press enter twice. And I want you to put it right there.
It's not at the bottom of your list. It's one below the bottom of your list, assuming that there's going to be a book above it.
Oh, yes. Tell you what, I'm going to give you my copies of Nothing But Black and Teeth and the Confederado so you can suffer with us.
Yeah.
I just don't know that I want to read them, though.
You can finish them in an afternoon. It's fine.
I mean, I could... Yeah.
So, I already ranked mine, and I put it third from the bottom, above Nothing But Black and Teeth and the Confederado. Even though I didn't like this book at all, and I feel like there's really nothing to say about it, Sarah Gailey wrote a competent story that made sense and wasn't full of plot holes.
To be fair to Sarah Gailey, because it's below Phantoms, but if you had given me a book that was just about Fletcher, the book would be higher than Phantoms.
Which one was Fletcher?
Who's Fletcher?
Exactly.
Oh, he's the bad guy. Not the bad guy.
He's the guy in jail that escapes.
Oh, God,
that whole plot.
I feel like
go away.
If we could just excise 4 or 5 chapters from Phantoms, and it would just.
I was really bored one Sunday, and I thought about doing it.
Question for the listeners: have you ever heard of the Hippo Act? Check out the YouTube videos and the podcast linked in our show notes. It's pretty interesting.
Oh shit! There's more.
Upcoming in the Horror Babylon. I will be shocked if I make a digestible version of this. So whatever. We're gonna do Renfield and then a bunch of Ring stuff and then a bunch of Pet Cemetery stuff. So that's cool. Abby, you're the bomb. Logan, you're the bomb. Ron, you suck the donkey dong, but that's okay because you throw barrels like Donkey Kong. I don't know why I'm announcing this now because this isn't going to see the light of day. But our first Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming sponsored episode in May will be the most horrific thing I've ever seen in my life. The Star Wars Holiday Special. It will drop on May the 4th, aka Star Wars Day, and we will have the one and only Ronald the Grampus himself as a special guest on that episode.
God. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So if you've ever wanted to see Wookiee porn, if you've ever wanted to see Mark Hamill with more makeup than Zsa Zsa Gabor, or if you've ever wanted to see some number of the Golden Girls in the Star Wars universe, then that's the one for you.
I love that you made a reference to Zsa Zsa Gabor. That's a very unusual reference these days.
I'm sorry, I grew up on the Muppets.
I grew up on Green Acres, and I remember Zsa Zsa Gabor is not Ava Gabor.
I hear that's the place to be.
It's the place for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the life for me. Biodome or son-in-law? Or
son-in-law. Son-in-law by a lot.
Or in the army now.
Ha!
or Encino Man.
Son-in-law still.
It's hard, but yeah, Son-in-law's up there.
Like Biodome, just because of the memes. Like
Yeah.
it gets its own. Like the movie is its own meme.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
I mean, they're all great. They're
Yeah.
all fantastic.
Pauly
You
Shore.
show me a Pauly Shore movie that isn't fantastic. Pauly Shore, Rob Schneider, they're real artists.
Buddy.
We should.
You know what we should do? We should wrap up this podcast and find some grindage.
I can feel some grindage. Buddy.
And Houndstooth and Hero, they did some grindage in the riverboat. Stay scary.
Stay scary.
Stay
I love you.
Stay scary, just us.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow Daniel at DStarSick on Twitter. Follow Ryan at Darth Daimyo on the Bluebird app. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.